Blog Talk Radio.
Here we are. It's Freedom Fridays. I'm going to be getting some new lighting so that I'm not the person sitting here in the shadows. Although I think is there an old TV show, Charlie, about in the shadows? Some
It's called
kind
Dark Shadows.
Oh
It's
no!
called Dark Shadows.
It's so creepy.
That's going back now. That's going back a ways.
Anyway, this is your host and your two hosts or your two co-hosts. This is Dr. Deb Carlin, and I'm here with Dr. Charlie Cartwright, and we're here for another episode of the K Factor, where on Fridays we're talking about freedom Fridays. And what are we talking about in terms of freedom? Well, we're talking about what are you doing inside of your head that's either keeping you on a lockdown or that's really setting you free. So listen to this. You got to know this. Dr. Charlie here does dashboard, what's it called? Dashboard cam?
Dash cam wisdom.
Dash cam wisdom. You know what? I need to put that in the tags. Dash cam wisdom. Anyway, what I said about our episode today was Freedom Fridays to encourage you, because I also watch Dash Cam Wisdom. And today we're coming together to encourage you. That's what your last episode was that I talked about. Yes. And so you're going to feel great to get a dose of hope and confidence with us today. Right?
I'm loving it.
I am too. Charlie, are you doing those dash cams every single day?
Well, I wasn't in the beginning, and then they really gained a lot of traction. So this week this is my first week of having them every day. Usually I was doing 2 or 3 in a week. And people are like, and then I would go back to my traditional posts and get like the sad emojis. Oh, where's my video, man? I'm protesting, nice post, but it's not the same. Bring back the dash cam. People would say, no video. So finally I was like, okay, this doesn't suck, but the video's better, basically is what. So I said, all right, I'm going to just go totally convert over, and from my traditional, I'll still maybe from time to time throw one of those other traditional posts where it's an image and some information in the afternoon. But this is my first week of making all 5 days of dash cam wisdom.
I think it's great. And they're only a couple minutes.
Yeah, 3 to 5. Well, 2 to 5. 2 to 5. So
yeah.
I
think they're great. You're sitting there. Here's what's really funny. I have to tell you, consistently, you turn it on, and you're a big guy. You're a muscular guy. You're very handsome, and you're really smart. And so when you first turn it on, it's like, whoa, that's it. That's one tough looking man sitting in that car there. You got a t-shirt on that says something on it, and then all of a sudden it's like it's like it takes you about maybe 4 seconds, and then you realize you're on camera, and you go from being tough dude to, hey, and your face lights up and you're all animated and friendly. So I think actually that works for you. I'm not saying it because I think you should change it at all. I think it really works, because it's like, okay, all right, we're here in the car. Behave. This is serious. Okay, now I want to talk to you.
Oh, it's so funny. There's a story behind how that all started.
Tell me.
And
Tell us.
So I have a cousin in Atlanta, Georgia, and he works for a social media marketing organization.
Okay.
And so we were talking about brand and all this stuff one day, and I was telling him, people really encouraged me to do video. Oh yeah, Dr. Charlie, you should definitely, create some video content.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm talking to, matter of fact, our friend Gary Baker. I'm talking to Gary in St. Louis.
Yeah.
I'll get some studio time, and then I'm looking at some place here in Kansas City, so it's only 3.5 hours up to the studio, and then I could plan it out, and so my cousin looks at me and he says, listen, he said, we've got a state-of-the-art studio, soundproof, professional lighting, sound. He said we have 8 camera angles, and they're based in Atlanta, right? And he said there's an 11-year-old girl here in Atlanta, Georgia, that's kicking our tail, and she's sitting on her bed with her iPhone making recordings of her trying on clothes. He says nothing to do with your studio, it's your content. He said just make them in your car. That's what he says to me. Just make them in your car. So I was like, okay. So I made the first one, and then I got the courage to make the second one. Then after the second one, someone put in the comments, "Oh, I really enjoying Dr. Charlie's Dash Cam Wisdom." So the next recording, I kind of made a joke about it.
Yeah.
One of the people in my network called this Dash Cam Wisdom, so I guess this is the 3rd edition, and I just kind of made a joke. Well,
I love
the comment section went right about Dash Cam Wisdom.
Yeah.
And then when I didn't make a recording,
Not down. You meant it went up.
Yeah, I just, if you scroll, all the comments were, a ton of comments were about Dash Cam Wisdom. And then the next day when I didn't make one, people were like, hey, where's my video? Where's the Dash Cam Wisdom? Bring back the Dash Cam doc. So it's kind of neat how it just organically, happened.
That is the best. So talk about the themes and how you come up with them.
It's interesting. I'm a very big proponent of law of attraction.
Yeah.
All of Napoleon Hill's work I've read a lot about. And, he talks about the ether, right?
Yeah.
And not everyone's familiar with the ether, where ideas come from. Right?
Yes.
And it's this zone of energy between heaven and earth, right? The ether.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all the ideas are in there, and all you've got to do is pull them out, right?
Right.
And he talks about how to do that. So it's so interesting. And then some people will call that the Holy Spirit. Some people will call it the universe. There's all these names. Even it was so interesting. This is fascinating to me. I saw I was watching an interview with George Lucas.
Okay.
And they were talking to him, and, I just think really highly of him.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And so they said, hey, do you think somewhere in a galaxy far, far away that there's actually Star Wars happening right now? And he said, do you believe that? And he says, I don't know if I believe in that. He said, but I do believe in the Force. Okay, same thing.
I love that.
It's the same thing. So for me to sit here and say, yeah, Dr. Deb, I came up with this, and it's not.
Yeah.
The ideas come to me, and I just talk about it. And so I wake up, and whatever I feel like I need to talk about today, I do. Yeah. And it's amazing the notes that private messages that I'll get, how it really helps someone.
Yeah.
And so it's purely waking up, and I'll get a feeling in my heart or a thought in my mind, and that's what I talk about. And it's the same thing when I step on the stage. Shock a lot of people if they've ever been in the audience with my keynote addresses, is that I have an outline.
Yeah.
And the outline is, hey, I'm going to talk about these 12 things, or I want to make sure, and then I have my images together.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to say, there are no notes. There's no plan for that. I'm just going to flow. And then the words come to me, and it's almost like an out-of-body experience where the words are just flowing and the phraseology is just flowing, and I'm just a conduit, if that makes sense.
It does. I have to tell you something, Charlie. There's a number of things running through my mind. Number one, how absolutely aligned and overlapped you and I are with our approach. I do the same thing. I've never read from a script. I've never, it's too rote that way. I want to look at the audience. Like, what's the first rule in speaking, right? Know who your audience is. Well, you can't know them until you're in front of them and you're paying attention to all their nonverbal behavior.
Yes.
Right? So you and I are very similar in that. So I want an outline, but like if I'm going to talk for, if I'm going to be on the platform for an hour or something like that, I might have 5 PowerPoint slides and their images, to make the powerful point. When people put up a whole thing of text, like a copy out of a book, say, are you going to read that to us? And then they stand there with their back to you and they're reading. And okay, well, just you really didn't need to show up. I mean, this is so icky. And then the other thing is, I'm thinking about the ways in which you are so pure. I just love you. You are so pure in who you are, and your humility is authentic. You just you don't own anything. You open yourself up to it, and it's beautiful the way that you were saying these things come to you. And you're reading Napoleon Hill and you love and admire him. Well, you didn't say that, but I'm saying that. I know you do, and I do too. But the ways in which you dial in, you look for ways to dial in to from our creator, whatever it is. Like you, I say, whatever it is that you've got there, to be of service. I love that. You inspire me every conversation that we have, because you remind me of these essential things, and that's what your audience loves about you. And then you come out with these things. And I'm thinking, oh good, I'm going to get encouragement, I'm going to have hope and confidence. Let's go.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that over time, how you acquire knowledge, you acquire all these golden nuggets, they make up who you are.
Yeah, they
and
do.
I remember, and I stumbled, and it's interesting how there are no random acts. And so what feels like a stumble is really, there's a reason why you came across this information. So I say I stumbled upon this quote, but there was a quote I'll never forget it. It's something that Luciano Pavarotti said.
I love Pavarotti.
Right? Yeah.
Luciano Pavarotti.
Yeah. He was he's considered the world's greatest tenor when he was alive.
Yes.
And he said this, and it's so powerful to me because it applies to more than singing.
Yeah.
It applies to life.
Yeah.
And he said, most singers want the audience to love them. He said, I love the audience. Complete difference, right?
Very.
Because they know it. The audience knows the difference and they feel it.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, this guy's up here and he's just trying to get adoration for himself instead of pouring into them. Yes. They came to listen, to be poured into, not to add to your legacy, right? Exactly. And so that paradigm shift is massive, and people know the difference. And my research, that's what I love about research and data. And there's a study out there, and it talks about how quickly people can determine your level of authenticity, right? Yes. 0.033 milliseconds.
Yeah. Right.
People know right away. They know without knowing. And so you cannot fool people for very long. No. And when you're authentic and when you're just in the flow, it forces you into authenticity, right? Because there's no place else to go. Yeah. There's no script. Right. So you're forced into it. And the more you do that, the more it becomes who you are. And I thought about this week too, Dr. Deb. So much of my life, I wanted to be liked. Everybody wants to be liked for the most part. Yeah. And so, but then there's behaviors that come with that. And my thought process.
That's right.
Right. So my thought process is this: if we're behaving in a way to get people to like us, right?
Right.
But it's not our authentic self. Yeah. Then people are liking us for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's a false connection. It's not a true connection. But when people that know us the best like us the most, that is, we're being authentic, and then it sorts out as it should. And everyone can't be, you can't have 7 billion friends. You just can't. Right. And that's okay. And so just when you're your authentic self, you'll attract the people that should be in your life and want to be in your life. And the other folks, there's no harm, no foul. They find their people too. Exactly. So, but when we fight against that, then we're in these unfulfilling, whether it be a business relationship or personal relationship or friendship, or have these unfulfilling relationships because we're fighting against our nature. But when we accept that and then say, here it is, and those that accept it and embrace it will come to you, and those that won't, don't. And that's fine. And so once you cross that threshold of being fine with who you are,
Yeah.
and who likes you and who doesn't, that's fine. I'm perfectly fine that I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'm perfectly fine with that. You know what I mean? And there are people that are not my cup of tea, and that's okay too. Doesn't make anyone evil. It just means that some people don't like tea and some people do. And so
Absolutely.
it's okay.
Exactly. And I'm thinking, I like tea. I like lemonade. I really like an Arnold Palmer, which is a mix of the two. And, it's like, it really is okay. A good friend of mine sent me this thing that said, it's not my business what other people think of me. And I thought, not my business? Wait a second. I want to know what people think of me. And then I thought, wait a second. You know what? There is so much chatter that goes on with people. If people think that bullying is limited to childhood and to, give me a break. Bullying is all over. Kids learn it from the grown-ups, and then it just permeates. And, it is kind of amazing. I went through a period of time where I just got into a situation where these people just, like, they're bullying me. I mean, I was a grown-up person, and it was awful. And I remember thinking to myself, it's like I wanted to look over my shoulder all the time. Like, is there caca on my shoulder, or, do I like a red X on my forehead or something? I mean, what's going on here? Then I realized that the people who were participating, I was trying to figure out what was wrong. Well, it didn't have anything to do with me. It's just who they are. There's some people who can't deal with anything more than a one-on-one, right? If they get into a group of 5, they've got to isolate each one person to be their person. So when they walk into a group of 4 more people, they feel like they're really connected to everyone, so they got like their secret jokes and like secret handshakes or something with everybody. And that was such an incredible lesson for me, because I ended up thinking to myself, as painful as it was, this is not, talk about a cup of tea. This is like a pot of tea, and it's scalding hot, and it's a little too much caffeine for me. I need to get out of here because these people are icky. Now, when you change that whole thing and you are just like naked yourself and just, there you are. People at least say, yeah, I like that because I can see myself right there. If you're phony baloney, people start to get a whiff of that and they say, wait a second. It's like you have a plaster mask on, and then they see a little crack in the plaster and they like pry it open, and there's nobody really in there. You know what the saddest part is in terms of encouragement, hope, and confidence? The saddest part is what I end up as a doctor of psychology talking to most people about is who you are, and what you have on the inside of you is beautiful.
100%.
Love it.
100%.
Yes.
And 100%.
Love it. Yes.
And it just, and feeling good and embracing that.
Yep.
That's freedom. That's freedom. And
that is freedom.
I just, there's, you want that for everyone. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
That, because people get upset that, hey, this person mistreated me, or they held me back, or they did something that wasn't good. And I feel those feelings as well.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about someone that makes a mistake, slip of the tongue. We've all done that.
Right.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about deliberate acts that someone has sat here and said, you know what, here's what I can do. And I'm going to deliberately try to undermine this person's credibility, or place doubt in the boss's mind, all this little insidious stuff.
Unbelievable.
I've had that happen.
Yeah.
And so it was really frustrating, especially looking back, like at the last company I worked for, when I look back, I see.
Oh, you froze. Well, Dr. Charlie Cartwright is muted and frozen. We'll try to get him I'm going to mute him and ask him
even
to.
more than when I was actually in it. So,
Oh.
and I saw a lot. And so.
Now, wait a second. And wait a second. You
And
froze for you froze for a minute. So at the last company that you worked for, something happened?
Yeah, and there was just a lot of politics, and I made it a promise to myself when I went. This is the last job I had before I went on my own. Made a promise to myself that I was not going to participate in this office politics stuff. And because of my previous job, I got into these. There's other managers. You get into these internal wars and silly stuff. And what happens when managers get into these internal wars is the customers suffer and the employees suffer.
Oh,
That's what happens.
Yeah, because
And
nobody's in their right mind.
No, and you're just fighting territorial stuff. And okay, and I'm smarter than you, and I'm going to prove it.
Stress.
It's just ridiculous. And
Stress,
so
right?
I let that go. I said I'm not going to operate that way.
Yeah.
But so I end up leaving that job and starting my own company. And as I look back, I see even more things that were being done, or I found out after the fact. And I was like, really? Like you can't impeach my work. So now you've got to, or my education. So now you've got to make up stories, right? Just make up a story that's not true. And then it's just really weird. So, but what I realize now is that those people, as soon as I left, they just found another target.
Yeah, and that's sad.
Right?
That's pathetic.
Because that's who they are. And
Yeah.
so, but the big realization is this: happy people don't do that, Dr. Deb.
That's right.
They never do it because they're too busy being happy.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we live into who we are. So if you're a person that's always undermining and backstabbing and all that, you're living that 24/7.
Yeah.
And that's a miserable existence that I wouldn't wish on anyone.
It is.
And where happy people are so consumed with their happiness and the happiness of others that they live into that 24/7.
Yeah.
And so that's the group that I want to be a part of. And anyone's welcome to join, right?
Yes. Now, here's the thing about those people that's really sad is they are suffering from truly serious lack of trust. And they just don't believe it. I'm a pretty happy person. I've gone through all kinds of, well, let's call it caca in my life. Things happen, you get sad, you get ripped apart, all kinds of things happen. And yet what I was raised to believe is that this life is precious, embrace it. There's no guarantee, not just for tomorrow, there's no guarantee you get the next moment, so the thing that I think about is the people who are in so much trouble that end up calling me and saying, I'm really stressed out. I hear that you know what to do about stress. And that was what you were describing while you were talking, was people whose stress level is so high. Well, why is it so high? Because they're darn suspicious of everybody around them. I know that you're going to do something crappy to me. So tell you what, I'm going to watch you really closely. I'm going to scrutinize everything about you. And good morning. Well, what do you mean by that? I really mean, I'm wishing you well. Would you like a cup of coffee? How you doing? Like, your hair looks really nice. What's wrong with my hair? No, seriously, it really looks nice. Oh, yeah. Well, that's what you say. Oh, my gosh. We need a breakthrough here. And the misery of that literally gives people every kind of symptomology that you could think of. I'm sitting 3 days in a physician office, being the person who's talking to and educating and guiding people about mind-body medicine and the influence of their mind over their body. And this guy comes in and he's talking to me, and man, I mean, he is just this handsome, good-looking, wonderful young man, and is smart and personable and uptight and so freaking angry. And I said, so what's going on? I don't know. I said, so tell me, what are your health deals? Because I haven't looked at your chart. You know, like, why did Dr. Levy send you in here? What's going on? And he goes, I don't know. I got everything. I'm inflamed. I got every kind of inflammatory. I looked at him and I said, well, of course you do. And he said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, listen to the way that you're talking to me. I mean, come on. I'm wearing light blue. It's a real friendly color. And you're all aggressive. What's going on in there? And he looked at me and he couldn't help but like think, nobody's ever talked to me like that before. This is kind of amusing. I sat there and talked to him for about 40 minutes. And he started saying things to me like, you know what? I got these thoughts going on in my head. And what do you think of this? And then my chest gets really tight. What do you think about this? And then my gut's really been bothering me. What do you think about this? I said, the question is, what do you think? Now that we're having this conversation. So all those people, like I will talk to them in a professional setting, but do I want those people next to me in my private life? No. I really have taken it, Charlie, I've taken it drop dead serious to the core that we are the people that we really surround ourselves with. And, some people say, oh, it's the 5, oh, it's the 3, oh, it's the 7. I don't care what the number is. It's a manageable number of people that you can have in your inner realm. It's like everybody who's on these Blog Talk Radio, YouTube episodes with me, I have strategically selected people who I want to snuggle up next to because their energy is so groovy. Dash cam wisdom, man. Because it's fun. I mean, before we went live today, I was saying to you, oh, I'm so glad to see you. A week is a long time, right?
It's true.
Because it's good energy.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. You have to, from time to time, take an assessment of who you have in your circle.
Yes.
And you need to make
Cleanse.
changes where necessary, because it's very necessary. The other thing I was going to add about the things that the health consequences of the poor attitude, people that have the poor attitudes in their mind, they're just unlucky. And they're not connecting the dots to their attitude is connected to their ailments. They're not connecting the dots. There's a ton of science and research to back everything up that we're saying.
Yeah.
And so it's a big deal that it not only hurts the people that they're pouring their attitudes onto, but it's probably 10 times as harmful to them internally. And it is just, these laws of nature are perfect laws, and they're indisputable, and they're inescapable, just like gravity. You can talk all day about how you don't believe it. A person can talk all day about how they don't believe in gravity.
Yeah.
And it's a bunch of hocus pocus science talk and all this stuff. And then if they step off of a 10-story building, they'll find out different real quick, right? And so that's how decisive these laws are. And the thing about it is, especially with your health, it's like that 10-story building, right? You step off the top of it, everything's fine for the first 9 floors. When you hit the bottom, it's bad. And all of a sudden, one day they hit the bottom and it's bad.
Yeah.
So it's a serious topic, and it's also the key to freedom.
Yeah.
The key to freedom starts with loving ourselves, and loving ourselves enough to surround ourselves with other people that are gonna love us back, respect us back, care for us.
Absolutely.
And as we care for them, and then we want to all grow that community. So that's the journey, and it's the neat journey. Some of the, it is so fascinating. I had I was helping a friend out. Him and his fiance bought a house, and they're going to flip it, but
Yeah.
they're renovating it, and so they got a great deal, but it's a huge project.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, hey, I can come over there on the weekends and lend a hand, 3-4 hours here and there, and that's 3 or 4 hours they don't have to spend. And so Saturday night we're over there. I think I was painting. And he was saying to me, well, I know there's other things you'd rather be doing on a Saturday night. And I said, what, besides being with my friends or my family? I'm hanging out with my friends.
Yeah.
So this is a good Saturday night for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get to spend time with my friends and help at the same, like we're getting something done, which I feel good about. And I said, if I wasn't here, I'd be sitting in front of my computer working.
Yeah.
So why not be with one of my friends working?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna find, I'm one of those people. I'm gonna find work. It's just, I had a friend that has a hunting dogs, and we were talking one day because they're chewing on stuff in the kennels, and he's like, these are working dogs, and he said you gotta work them. He said if you don't give them work, they're gonna find it.
That's
and
right.
So they tear stuff up.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm just wired that way, that I love having fun and relaxing. But once that's done, what can I get to work on?
I have a way of turning almost everything into work. It's like you and I have got a vision for accomplishment. And we also have such vision ability about the way that things could be better. Like I know, like I'm laying on the beach, okay? So I'm laying on the beach, and I've got this great lounge chair that I bought from REI, which I love REI. Their equipment and everything they would be a good sponsor for the show. As a matter of fact, we could talk REI all day long. So we could each have REI chairs that we sit in on the show.
That'd be awesome.
I love it because it's like a lounge chair, and it tilts back, and I'm laying in that chair, and people will go by and go, where did you get that chair? Is that a little pillow and everything? And it folds up. It's not too heavy to carry. Anyway, so I will, if I want to lay on my back and get the sun, I'll lay that way. And then I always bring a couple of big towels on either side. Because first of all, I want to map out my territory. Don't step on these towels. This is part of my yard here. And I also want to be able to lay down. So when I'm laying on the towels, I'm thinking, okay, this is just not quite comfortable enough. You really need to have a way to smooth out the sand. Otherwise, you lay down and there's all these lumps. So I figured out I could get the little kid's bucket with all the little sand tools in it, and there's a little rake in there, like you see on the golf course. So I bring my little bucket along with my towels in my chair. I'm strapped onto my back, and you take the little rake and you can rake stuff out. Well, then I realized your body isn't flat. So I lay down, I'm laying there, and I'm thinking, this is great. I'm really proud of myself. It's very smooth. It's very flat. It's very straight. And then I'm thinking, now I'm mushed in places where I need to actually have an indentation in the sand. So I roll over on one side and look at where the indented places need to be and do a little bit more raking. And little kids who are there, they're very entertained because they're watching you. Even the seagulls will come walking by, looking at you out of the corner. How they turn their head, birds turn their head to look at you. It's really funny. And so I'm thinking to myself, I watch then kids end up doing the same thing. So really, all we're doing throughout our life, Charlie, you and I, people like us, is we're role modeling entertainment for others. In the midst of, making things better. So like when you're there with your friends, it is amazing. You're making things better. An analogous story I have to that is this young couple that I was friends with in graduate school. They didn't know bupkis about, they're newly married. Like, how do you take care of this house? And so they asked me, Deb, would you come on over and have dinner with us? So I go over and I said, okay, so what's for dinner? Well, we don't know. We were hoping you could figure it out. So I open up the refrigerator and I go through and I pull out all this stuff and I say, okay, let's chop this, let's do this, let's do. And we had this great dinner. And at one point, the guilt factor kind of went through them. And they said, kind of same thing as your friend said, geez, we like really didn't mean for you to come over and work. And I said, do I look like I'm sweating or complaining? This is fun. It's joyful. I would rather have you do it this way than I come over and, no offense, but neither one of you know bupkis about being in the kitchen. So you would have served me something that was, I don't know, maybe horrible. At least I have a hand in it,
Yeah.
And so if we're just natural, authentic, let love flow, have trust, then we're encouraged by that. Like you talked about in Dash Cam Wisdom, you get encouragement from that, which then gives you hope. Like I can ask my friend over anytime. We can do any of these kinds of tasks and chores. And isn't that lovely? Doesn't it give you confidence? Phenomenal buckets of it, right? But
So true.
where do people get that, Charlie? Because so many people are like void of that. They're missing that.
Yeah, it's such a, it seems counterintuitive
Yeah.
that the more you give, the more you get.
Yeah, but it's true.
It's 100% true. I don't care what it is. The more you give, the more you get.
Yeah.
And it's one of these laws of nature that there's so much joy in giving of your time to help someone else, and they appreciate it. And it's just, I don't know, there's just something about it. And then that at the end of the day that you did good for that day. You brought some more light into the world, and then when you're on the receiving end of it, it always feels kind of foreign, right?
Right.
But it also feels good that you're like, oh, this is what this feels like. This is great, to receive the same. And so it's really dynamic, and it's a world changer for sure. And I think that for sure, if we would look at ways that we can help one another, if we were really focused on that, right?
Right.
Like, hey, how can I help this person, or how can I help this family, or how can I help these people? We're all focused on really figuring out how we could help one another. I mean, it would be such a world changer. But
Yes.
there's just this, so much of a mentality of the opposite of that, of this scarcity mentality. And I'm going to keep this, and I'm going to keep them away from that, and protect this and my that, instead of, being open and trying to really heal people.
Right.
It's so
Absolutely.
interesting. Yeah.
I think about that in the context of everything we see going on in the world right now. Why in the world, in the midst of everything that, this lighting is amazing. If I'm moving my hands, the camera puts some light on me here. God is shining on me when I'm speaking. Why in the world do we need to have news that is replete with one person just putting down the other, people screaming at each other, and it's nastiness, and it's expletives, and it's a tonal quality that's so offensive that you just cringe listening to it. Right? And you watch it. Sometimes I'll like turn on the news for a bit, and I'll mute it, and it's like, man, I don't need to have the volume on at all. I know exactly what these people are saying, and it's nothing that I want to have running through my thoughts. I don't think that people, in our show here, my hope is that in terms of people getting encouragement from us, getting hope and confidence, that one of the things that we all learn, like we were talking about cleansing our social circles, right? One of the things that's really interesting, this is why I never wanted to be a clinical psychologist, is I when I was in graduate school, I went through all the different kinds of therapy, not because it was required, but because I thought if I'm going to be a doctor of psychology, I need to know all this stuff. And I want to take the journey and see, you know, what's all my psychological stuff about. And one of the things I don't like about a lot of therapies is we need to, let's talk, Charlie. So tell me, how bad was it? And how did that make you feel? You know, when it was really horrible. Let's dive deep there. Let's stay there. Oh, I'm sorry. Your time is up, but you know, there's a Kleenex next to you. And I'm not being facetious. I'm being absolutely drop dead serious because I went through that and I witnessed it and I experienced it for myself. And I thought, you know, there's something, people started doing positive psychology and you know, it's relatively popular now. And it's a movement, just like with medicine, away from just attending to stuff that's negative and instead being really forward thinking. And here's the absolute brain science. If what you keep doing is firing the negative neurons, you're strengthening those negative neural networks in your mind consciously and unconsciously. And for every emotion, there's a thought and vice versa. And that pairing releases neurotransmitters throughout our body, which is all about our absolute physiological chemistry. So when people say, I need antidepressants, well, you know, you need your serotonin levels lifted. Here's a couple other ways that you can do it. Instead of looking at pharmaceuticals, you know, eat dark chocolate. Yay. Get up and move and dance and sing, you know? And if you can get into endurance, you know, and you can work out long enough to experience it. I remember when I was a runner, oh my God, what I would love to do is be able to run 7 miles a day again. My endorphin high from that, I was like really happy. My legs felt like rubber bands, you know, and the run was great. I don't know why I ever stopped, because now trying to get back into it, it's like, oh, okay, I'll think about it. I'll do something else to get happy. Wait, where's that chocolate? It really dark chocolate. But people are firing all these negative neurons. And back to the original comment that spawned that line of thinking there for 2-3 paragraphs, we have to be careful about what we allow to come into our head. Like people have said, oh, Deb, you should watch this movie. Are you kidding me? The one about Hannibal Lecter? No, I saw it once by mistake, and it was so horrifying. I had to sit there. I was like paralyzed, glued to the horror of the story. No, I don't need that in my life. I don't want any of that kind of violence and despair. Do you know, in the play, Streetcar Named Desire, every actress who played that leading role had a breakdown?
I didn't know that.
No wonder, because the role is excruciating. You know? I mean, don't walk into territory that's going to be unhealthy for you. Turn the corner and walk into dash cam wisdom, where you're going to get encouragement and fire those neurons in healthy directions.
Yeah, it's really, this is the battle that I see right now is of the mind. And are you going to live into the positivity and the light, or are you going to live into what all you should be afraid of? Because the media is waiting for you to turn on the television so they can tell you what all you should be afraid of, or whose fault it is. And the same thing, there's several new, radio shows, same thing, play into it. And so you really have to be on guard for that, because it can really suck you in very quickly.
Yeah.
And take you down. And take you down before you know it, kind of like a riptide.
It is a riptide.
Coming out of the ocean, it can rip you out. And
before you even notice it.
Before you even notice it, you can get lost. So you really have to be mindful of it, because it's interesting. Because I don't watch hardly any television. It's all streaming stuff that I watch now, so I can control it.
Right, me too.
but I was on, was it maybe YouTube? And there was a congressman. No, I think she was running for, maybe she's running for Congress. I think she's running for Congress.
Okay.
But it struck me because she was in this scene, and it was a very good, I mean, very smart commercial. The cinematography was excellent. Beautiful gal, red dress. And it reminded me, when I saw it, it reminded me of the Matrix movie.
Okay.
And this woman in the red dress in the Matrix, and she was a distraction, and she turned out to be this agent in this training program that Keanu Reeves was in, Neo, the character.
Yeah.
So that's what flashed in my mind, and this woman's just walking, and so the camera is following her, and she's talking. She's African American, and she's got the red dress, and so she's a Republican candidate. And she says, "Hey, walk with me." And I can't remember which city she was in, whether she's in Detroit or where she was at. But she's like, "Hey, here's what the Democrats don't want you to see." So she walks, and she's in this African American community. And she's walking around, and this boarded up buildings. I mean, it's terrible. And this has been a Democratic controlled state for 20 years, and look at this place, right? And then she there's a map that shows all of these blue states, and every one of these, name one of them that the African American community is thriving in, and this is what Democratic leadership does, and all this stuff. And very well done, Dr. Deb. But here's the reality: there's not a state in America that the African American community is thriving. Not one. We're 0 for 50, baby. So it doesn't matter if you talk about Democrat, Republican, we are 0 for 50. And it's a significant issue. So, and I think that there's it's a very complicated issue for sure. The fact that it's lasted this long, but to say that it's the Democrats' fault, or say that it's the Republicans' fault, it's a collective error, and that's Black people, that's white people, that's Latino, you name it. It's a collective failure there, and there's reasons for it. So anyhow, but to be able to look at those things and look beyond it to, hey, there's a solution here, and that involves us gathering together and for a common good.
Yeah.
And rebuilding some things one community at a time. And that's mindset and so many things, and not playing into their fault, our fault, my fault. We're collectively responsible, and where we go from here depends on how we approach it. And we can't, if we do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always gotten. And I remember growing up, and my relatives, my grandmother on my father's side, and my aunts and uncles, and I'd spend the night with a cousin. Well, on Sunday morning, if you're spending the night with a cousin on Sunday morning, you're going to the church they're going to. That's how it used to work, and going to these Black churches, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember the message was there was no message of, hey, here's what we can do.
What denomination was it? Baptist?
A lot of Baptists.
Yeah.
It was woe is me and they and them, and we're downtrodden, and we're this and we're that, and not to say that bad things hadn't happened over the years, but
that was the focal point.
That was a focal point, and so we're victims.
Yeah, that's not inspiration. That's not inspiration.
And so when you're preaching that, people are literally living into that. They are becoming victims.
Yes.
They're being indoctrinated into victimhood. Okay? I know that's not a popular thing to say, but it's a fact.
I'm so glad you're saying it, Charlie, because you know what? I have really been bothered by that.
Victimhood. And so I have and I'm just, this is the fact. And so again, as a young adult, I had a lot of these thoughts in my mind. Well, this happened to me, and this was taken away from me, and they did this to me, and I wasn't lying about anything that had taken place. Yeah. However, it's up to me as a human being to overcome
Yeah, right,
obstacles, to
right.
overcome all these things. And so I remember one of my uncles sitting at the kitchen table for breakfast and him talking about all the opportunities that were either withheld from him or taken away from him as a child. And I just remember, oh man, because I really looked up to my uncle. Now that same uncle is in his 80s, and I'm like, he's still a victim.
Oh,
He
gosh.
never overcame it. He used it as, well, this is the reason why. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking to myself, well, now, well, why did you stay there? Well, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you talk to someone else? Well, why didn't you get a different job? Well, why didn't you, get an investor? Why didn't you, like, he didn't overcome it. He remained a victim. And so his life is that. And the craziest thing of all of it, this guy was special forces in the military.
What?
So I'm like, you're this
Powerful, accomplished.
powerful, you know what it takes
Wow.
to be a special forces, what it takes. And he was an airborne Army Ranger. Those
Yeah,
are
oh
some
my
of the
gosh.
toughest people on the planet.
Yeah, disciplined like no, and courageous.
Courageous, fought for his country, was
Wow.
shot at, all these things. And now, but I'm a victim. You know what I mean? And so it shows how powerful the mindset is and what we choose to let in, because whatever we choose to let in, we're going to live into.
We've got to open up the next show talking about this. We've still got time, but we have to really. I mean, we don't have to. You know how I talk. It's not like I'm laying out a mandate here. It's up to us to decide what we do each episode. But listen, one of the things that's really bothered me is I need your help on this. I need clarification on this. This idea of victimhood is not just in the Black community, it's among women. If there's one group right now that's being victimized, I think it's white men. I've been talking about that. Men, number one, white men, number two, they're blamed for everything, no matter who they are individually. And then, Black men, it's like you're absent somewhere, right? And so because we talk a lot about fatherless families in the Black community, here's the thing. If every demographic was angry about their victimhood, we would have no one happy. Children are always being bossed around. Old people are always being shuffled over to the side and forgotten about and being dealt with like they're stupid instead of honored for their wisdom. We've got all these corrections to make. But one of the things that you had said just a few minutes ago was how we're 0 for 50. And you said there's not one single state in the country where the Black community is thriving. So I need your help to understand that. And I know it's way more than what we can go into in the last 6 minutes that we've got. But Charlie, I want to understand the depth and the breadth of what you mean by that. And I'm going to say why. Other than the obvious things. And I know you and I are both chomping at the bit. We could go on for another hour on this. But, one of the things that I look at, and I don't mean to be insensitive, I'm being aware. We have this racial divide where the Black community says we need our own entertainment channel, our month to honor our part of history. There's these segregationist types of we need this for our identity. And I'm saying, okay, all right, so there's an assumption there that we owned all 12 months and that all the other channels are for, anybody who I guess is white or not Black. And so I look at that and I think to myself, I want everybody to know their identity. Absolutely. As a woman, I love knowing my identity, but I don't want to be separated from men. You know, I mean, yeah, I've got girlfriends, lady friends, women friends, whatever, but I don't want to just hang around with the women. I love my engagements with males. So I worry about the ways in which, in order to rise up out of something, people isolate and segregate themselves. I think the worst thing that's ever happened in our country, three things. One, nursing homes and places where we put older people. Okay, I can't have them in my house. Put them over there. Okay, all right. There's a cost for that in every way. The other is the idea that our country, as a country, made a decision. Well, that's a ghetto. So children aren't safe to go to school there. The schools are horrible. So let's put them on a bus, take them to the other side of town, and have them go to school there. By the way, don't put them on buses with seatbelts. Don't have their parents drive them there so that their parents know where they're going. I can't imagine what the children felt like and what the parents felt like to be swept out of their neighborhood. Because in my opinion, then the neighborhoods broke further down. The churches, we've had more churches closed. We've had more schools closed in this country. I don't think we should ever close a schoolhouse or a house of worship. We need to beautify and make safe every single neighborhood. People can make fun of me. It's not my business what people say, right? We can't abandon a single street. We can't afford to abandon a single street in this nation. And when we started doing that, then we really started making the divide. We need, you talk about integration. What we really need is we need integration of goodness, integration of resources. Why should there be one neighborhood that's a bad neighborhood? This is like some kind of freaking insanity. In the last 3 minutes of the show, I open up this can.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Think back. You remember there was a law passed in '64, right?
Yeah.
Here's what's lost sight of right now, and especially I believe in the African American community. So that law in '64 had to do with civil rights, correct?
Yeah.
So in '64, what was the percentage of African Americans in this country? What, 11, 12%? Right? So that means that a lot of white people had to vote for that. A lot.
Yeah, there you go.
That is lost. And so people are acting now like that didn't happen. That did happen. And I remember as a man, I remember getting choked up. I still get choked up thinking about it. Because I never saw the picture when I was growing up. But my favorite movie of all time is Ben-Hur. My second favorite movie of all time is The Ten Commandments. Charlton Heston was the star in both of those.
Yep.
And so that was the actor I looked up to the most. And I saw a picture of him standing next to Dr. King.
Really?
He's at the height of his career, but he knew how important that was. And other white people saw him and said, that's how change happens.
Yeah.
It's not by throwing bottles, not by throwing rocks. It's by people stepping forward. And people did.
Yeah.
And we don't have enough of that right now.
No, we don't. Well, I'll tell you what, we don't have enough time.
90 seconds.
90 seconds, perfectly timed. Charlie, you are such a wonderful person. I am so glad that we're friends, good friends, and that we're bringing perspective and love to people. Thank you so much for being here on this episode today.
Thanks for having me. It's always awesome.
Yeah, it is always awesome. Friends, this is your team. Dr. Charlie Cartwright and Dr. Deb Carlin coming together from two different realities, love and sharing with you. Until next Friday for Freedom Fridays with us, we're signing off today. Charlie, stick around. Peace out, everybody.